Hi, I'm Sarathi, and in this video I'm going to explain how to create targets in PowerCenter Designer and use the PowerCenter Designer to create DDLs and generate these targets automatically in the databases. So in this video we're going to see how we create a table metadata in PowerCenter Designer even though it doesn't exist in the database, and then we're going to see how to push this metadata to the database. That means how to create this table in the database using the PowerCenter Designer. So what I would do now is, after connecting to the PowerCenter repository, open a folder and then the target designer and another targets, create a target and specify the name here. I have specified it as my table. Now you can select the database type, whether it's DB2, flat file, Informix or anything. So for time being, let us select it as Oracle. Now if you select it as ODBC, the syntax for generation of DDL would be by default taken as Oracle. Now I'm trying to create a table of type Oracle. I'll say create, I'll say done. Now a table gets created in the PowerCenter repository. It's just a metadata. It doesn't yet exist in any database. So I'll click here and then I'll add certain columns. So let's say I'm adding an ID column, then I would be adding a name column, then I would change this to a number 10,2 and name, let it be varchar of say 30. Now this I can change it as primary key and I can select the type of key I want here. Now suppose I select a foreign key here, then if at all I have any other tables in this repository where targets are defined with primary keys, those tables would be shown here and we can select the table name and the column name here. Because this is my first table in this folder, I am not seeing any other tables when I select this as a foreign key. So I've selected as not a key, apply, okay, and then save the changes. So now the metadata about my table is inserted into PowerCenter repository. Now I'll click on this table, I'll go to targets, generate or execute SQL. Now here I can select the options. If I generate from all tables, that means all the tables that exist in this workspace in the target designer would be created, or I can click selected table so that only the tables that are selected in the workspace of target designer will be created. Now if I select primary key, that will get created. If at all an index is defined when I was defining this table, the index will also be created. Now drop table is to drop the table if it already exists. Now if you don't want this operation to go through if the table already exists, then uncheck the drop table. So if the table already exists in the target schema, then PowerCenter will not create that table again. Else first it will run the drop table command, and if the table exists or doesn't exist, it will drop the table and it will also drop the index, then it will try to create the table. Now if I just want to generate a SQL file, I can click generate SQL file and it says mktable SQL already exists. You can say overwrite it. So it generated the SQL file. Now if you want to see the SQL file, you can click on edit SQL file. So it runs the drop table command, then it runs the create table, then it runs the alter table to add the primary key. Now if you want to execute the SQL, you can click on execute SQL. It will ask you for the data source name. Now this DSN should exist in the current machine where the designer is running. So all these data source names exist in the current Windows machine where the designer is launched. Or if I don't want to see the SQL file but just generate and execute, I can click on generate and execute. Then I can select the DSN name. So I would say connect. Then it would ask, you want to overwrite? You can say okay. Then if you see here, if the statement succeeds, you will see that the SQL statement processed here. So in the DSN that I have selected by generating and executing the SQL, that DSN is for an Oracle database. So in that database, under the schema name that I have given when I was trying to generate and execute, this particular table is created. So the my table is created in the target database that I selected while generating and executing this DSN. So this is how we generate or create tables metadata inside the PowerCenter Designer and then push the metadata to the target database. So in this, we have seen how to generate or create targets in the database using PowerCenter Designer. Now the same option does not exist for the sources, because when you are running mappings, it is expected that the sources already exist with some data, and targets may not exist as it may be a new mapping. So you can always create or generate targets using PowerCenter Designer, but the same option does not exist for sources because it is expected that the sources exist with some data. So we'd love to hear from you about the feedback on supportvideos@informatica.com, or you could follow us on Twitter account twitter.com/infosupport. Thank you.